The year is 1646. Here we see a replica of the town of Kingston upon Hull, recreated from a map made in 1640. The town sits at the mouth of the River Hull as it drains into the Humber estuary. Hull has always been at risk of flooding. Much of the town is below mean sea level, and while there were flood defences in place from at least the 14th century onwards, high tides sometimes spilled over onto this area of land north of the town. Records tell us that in 1646 Hull was battered by two huge storms. In March 1646, we read of hideous and mighty winds causing waves that destroyed the wooden flood defences along the River Humber at Drypool to the left of our screen. With the bank still breached, another storm, described as a hideous tempest, struck in winter, causing widespread flooding. This film tells the story of the winter 1646 flood. The hideous tempest of 1646 was a North Sea storm causing an area of deep, low pressure that forms a bulge of water called a storm surge. In this scene, we are 1 hour away from the storm surge peak. There is no flooding here along the banks of the River Hull, north of the town. Although with water levels in the Humber estuary now 3.3 metres above mean sea level and still rising, it won't be long before the River Hull breaks its banks and floods this area upstream of the town of Hull. Hull's medieval military defences included walls and moats, but these walls also helped defend the town from flooding. On the opposite bank of the River Hull at Drypool, there was another wall defending the dockside, with a garrison of soldiers on site. Beyond this wall, where the land meets the Humber, we can already see flooding along the breached banks at Drypool to the left of our screen. We've now moved forward half an hour to around 30 minutes before the storm surge peak. Water levels have reached 3.5 metres above mean sea level. We can see overtopping on both banks of the River Hull here, between the port and the Drypool garrison wall. The rising waters have also travelled northwards, overtopping the banks upstream of the River Hull in some areas. We can also see flooding picked out by sunlight here near the Drypool garrison wall. The moat provides easy access for floodwater to flow inland. Moving south down the River Hull, we can see High Street, a commercial area that connects the town to the port. There are already pockets of flooding along the staves or wharves used for unloading boats. On the Drypool side beyond the garrison wall, large areas of land are now also flooded. Our final scene takes place 40 minutes later, 10 minutes after the storm surge peak. Waters are beginning to recede, but large areas of land along the banks of the rivers Humber and Hull are now flooded. There is so much flooding of fields and houses outside the walls to the north of the town that it is now difficult to make out the original channel of the River Hull. The pools of water we saw on the Drypool side have now also increased, creating small islands of dry land. As we move southwards along the River Hull, we can also see increased flooding along the town's moats, docks, and even within some of the streets of the town itself. Tidal inundations were relatively frequent in Hull before the River Hull tidal surge barrier was opened in 1980. Crucially, it is these experiences of living with water and flooding that make their mark on the literature, history, and culture of this city.